Every one of us carries a deforming mirror where he sees himself too small or too large, too fat or too thin. Jung said, proceed from the dream outward. From the dream outward. Proceed from the dream. I'm sitting on the roof of a house in China, waiting for the darkness when I can slip down and enter the city secretly. A woman shows me the way in. There are many rooms. I'm kneeling before a meal, an immense round plate on my knees, filled with pearl-studded slippers, angel hair, icicles, melted gold. I look intently and lovingly, because I know I'll be only once in each room, and that all I see, I will see only once. Given time, I could read it like a book. It reminds me of many things, none of which I can remember entirely. Even as a child, I had an unusual awareness of what people felt. I had intuition about what went on behind appearances, and I trusted it and spoke out. Feelings. I can feel what I felt about my father's white mice. The horror they inspired in me, the revolting odor, the taste of a burnt omelet my father made for us while my mother was sick. The embrace of the nuns, drowning me in veils as they leaned over. I feel, but I cannot remember what I saw in the mirror as a child. Perhaps a child never looks at a mirror. Perhaps a child, like a cat, is so much inside of himself that he does not see himself in the mirror. Later, I remember what I looked like. But when I look at photographs of myself, no reflections. 6 years old, 7 years old, no images, no reflections. I remember, at the age of 6, a blue bow on my hair, shaped like a butterfly. I must have seen this bow in the mirror then. But in the mirror there never was a child. In the mirror there is no Anais Nin. No Anais Nin. I was a fervent little Spanish Catholic child who chastised herself for loving toys, who forbade herself the enjoyment of sweet foods, who practiced silence, who adored symbols, statues, burning candles, incense, for whom communion was a great event. I was so exalted by the idea of eating Jesus' flesh and drinking his blood that I couldn't swallow the host. And then, at 16, resentful of controls, disillusioned with a God who had not granted my prayers, the return of my father, I rejected all Catholicism with exaggeration. I took moon baths because I thought they would influence my destiny, grant me a more mysterious life, a night life. I had heard that the effects of the moon were dangerous. This tempted me. In Richmond Hill, in my bedroom, I would lie naked where the moonlight shone through my open window in the summer, bathing in it and dreaming of the fantastic life it would create for me. At 9 years of age, a medical diagnosis that I would never walk again had turned me to writing as a pastime. The diagnosis was wrong, but I had settled on a means of expression and activity. At 11, the diary was written to persuade my absent father to return. At 20, I wrote a bad novel. At 21, bad short stories. At 25, another bad novel. The diary remained. I did not know how to utilize the richness of the diary material. I preferred the freedom of the diary, to say everything. The diary was written very fast, as I lived. In New York, working as a lay analyst, I wrote between patients. It contained stories I never developed, characters I never wrote about. It became a personage in its own right. I apologized when I had no time for it. The false persona I had created for the enjoyment of my friends, the gaiety, the buoyant, the receptive, the healing person, had to have its existence somewhere. In the diary, I could let out my demons. Jung said, proceed from the dream outward. I had a recurrent dream I never could explain. Walking through the streets of a city, I heard fire engines. I rushed to the fire. The diaries were burning. I had locked up my demons in the diaries where they could do no harm. And if the diary burned, I would be left only with its persona, smiling, ever available, ever devoted. I carried the diary around in buses, waiting rooms, doctors' offices, cafes, everywhere. Always dealing with the immediate present, the warm, the near, and being written at white heat. The diary developed a love of the living moment, of the emotional reaction to experience. A diary never ends. As the diarist does not know the future, she reaches no conclusion, no synthesis. The very condition of the work required its being done in darkness, inside of a box of secrecy. The very integrity of it depends on its secrecy. On November 8th, 1933, Dr. Otto Rank asked me to give up my journal, and I left it in his hands. He delivered me of my opium. It was a bold stroke. It stunned me. It was violation. A few moments ago, just before dark, in the park, I had sat writing in it, writing of the lies I would tell Rank to interest him. I feared he would not find me interesting enough, and I was going to dramatize my life. I had confided to the diary all the lies I wanted to tell, and now he wanted to take possession of all my secrets.
If you carry it around and bring it here, it is because you want to give it. You want someone to read it. It is your last defense against psychoanalysis. It is like a traffic island you want to stand on. If I am going to help you, I don't want you to have a traffic island from which you will survey the analysis, keep control of it. Do you understand?
Do you understand? Recovering from the shock, I began to feel elation. A feminine elation, like that of a woman who is asked to give all by a possessive man. I want your body, your heart, your soul. Dr. Rank was demanding all in one blow. I deposited the diary on his table. His eyes shone resplendently, as if the unconscious were a clever adversary and the act of detecting it a pleasure, a superior game of chess.
Your game, your move, Anais Nin.
Your game, your move, Anais Nin. But that is not all he asked that first evening. As I unfolded the maze, my husband Hugo, Henry Miller, my cousin Eduardo, Dr. Allende, my father.
I can't help you unless you break away from all of them, unless you isolate yourself until you are calm and integrated again.
At Guy de Maupassant's house in Etretat, in Brittany, a wild storm brought the sea as far as the house and dumped on the garden a fishing boat which remained there. I remember the derelict sailboat, deep and wide, planted in the back of the garden. It was used as a garden tool house. I wanted to spend the night in it. The owners of the house laughed at me. The boat had a strange effect on me. I'd often had a recurrent dream of a boat stuck in the ground, unable to sail for lack of water. Here it was, stranded and static in an old garden, never to sail again, rotting in the earth like a flower pot, with moss growing over it instead of barnacles, with the smell of earth on it instead of sea. The sight of it gave me a dream that night. I dreamed that I was spending the night in a fishing boat at the bottom of the garden. I fell asleep, and it began to sail down a river. I had no control over its journey. People called to me from the shore. "Where are you going? How long will you be gone? Come back. Why don't you come back?" I felt myself happy to be in motion. The journey took 20 years. For 20 years, I sailed continuously in my dream. Jung said, "Proceed from the dream outward." What causes the choice of memory, certain events to fade, others to gain in luminousness and spice? My posing for artists at 16 was unreal, shadowy. The writing about it sometimes brings it to life. My period as a debutante in Havana, no flavor. Why does its flavor sometimes appear later? while living another episode or while telling it to someone? What revives it when it was not lived fully at the time? Some portions of my life were lived as if under ether, and many others under a complete eclipse. Why did some remain flavorless and then recover a new flavor or meaning? Certain periods that seemed intense at the time, violent almost, have never had any taste since. I know I wept, suffered, rebelled, was humiliated and proud too. But it's as if it had happened through someone else. And the interest I took in its episodes was that of a writer who recognized good material. Yet I can remember with clear eyes a ride I took through the Valley de Charus several years ago when I was ill and indifferent. Today, I can see every leaf on every tree, every face in the street, and all as clear as leaves after the rain. Jung said, proceed from the dream